are moving in wider circles. We are opening our circle. We are moving in wider circles. We are moving in our circle. Oh, be a compass. I'll be your lighthouse. Speak your words with triumph. I will watch your mouth. I'll march with you, my sister, to your place of fearing. We'll dive into those waters, swim into the clearing. We are moving in wider circles. We are opening our circle. We are moving in wider circles. We are moving in our circle. We'll always keep our heads up. We'll always sing along. We'll walk the path of kindness, know where we belong. I'll march with you, my brother, to the mountain top. We'll hold back the dynamite, make the rumble stop. We are moving in wider circles. We are opening our circle. We are moving in wider circles. We are opening our circle. Oh, be a pillar. I'll be your mockingbird. We'll sing the rock of ages. Yes, we will be heard. Let's form a great salvation through harmony and sound. We'll know the shape of progress, like nature's always round. Like nature's always round. We are moving in wide circles. We are opening our circle. We are moving in wider circles. We are opening our circle. We are moving in wider circles. We are opening our circle. We are moving in wider circles. We are opening our circle.
Good morning, and welcome to our Sunday service at the Unitarian Church of Vancouver. We are live streaming from the sanctuary on the corner of 49th and Oak in beautiful Vancouver, BC. Every week, we recognize that our sanctuary stands on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, and we ask that you post your own territorial recognition in the chat. My name is Jamie Hominiuk. You may not recognize me, as I'm a new member of the Worship Services Committee. I'm very happy to be here today, and even happier to introduce our wonderful guest speaker, Chris Morrissey, who will tell us about Rainbow Refugee. But first, I would like to invite to the pulpit Mary Bennett, a member of UCV's Gender and Sexualities Alliance, to kindle our chalice flame and give us some opening words.
Good morning. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. And now sit back and enjoy the treat of hearing Patrick Dubois sing Rainbow Connection.
please look at the lyrics, sing along. And if you don't find them in the order of service, it's easy to Google. You can think of the Rainbow Connection as the kind of connection beyond appearances, beyond the surface, beyond race, gender, creed, color, whatever. Just like all the colors of the rainbow are all part of one light. Why are there so many songs about rainbows, and what's on the other side? Rainbows are visions and only illusions. Rainbows have nothing to hide. So we've been told, and some choose to believe it. I know they're wrong, wait and see. Someday we'll find it, the Rainbow Connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me, and you and everyone who said that every wish would be heard and answered when wished on the morning star. Somebody thought of that, and someone believed it. Look what it's done so far. What's so amazing that keeps us stargazing? And what do we think we might see? Someday we'll find it, the Rainbow Connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. All of us under its spell, we know that it's probably magic. Have you been half asleep, and have you heard voices? I've heard them calling my name. Is this a sweet sound that calls the young sailors? I think it's one and the same. I've heard it too many times to ignore it. It's something that I'm supposed to be. Someday we'll find it, the Rainbow Connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. La-di-da-dee-da-da-do, la-da-da-da-da-dee-da-do.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Lam. I'm a member of EPOC at the Church, Unitarian Church in Vancouver. And this morning, Gahong, my partner, will be reading a book, telling a story with you. And this is Gahong.
Hi, my name is Gyawan, and today we're going to be reading All Are Welcome by Alexandra Penfold and Suzanne Kaufman.
This is in their class in the school. Pencil sharpened in their case. Bells are ringing. Let's make haste. School's beginning, dreams to chase. All are welcome here.
No matter how you start your day, what you wear when you play, or if you come from far away, all are welcome here. And here you see a girl in a hijab and a boy in a kippah.
In our classroom, safe and sound, fears are lost and hope is found. Raise your hand, we'll all go around. All are welcome here.
And there's a girl in the Fulani braids over here.
And there's a blind boy.
And a boy wearing a Sikh patta.
Yeah.
Gather now, let's all take part. We'll play music, we'll make art.
All kinds of instruments, right?
Yeah.
We'll share a story from the heart. All are welcome here. And their teacher is wearing an African headdress.
Time for lunch. What a spread. A dozen different kinds of bread. Pass it around till everyone's fed. All are welcome here.
Wow, this is Persian flatbread, baguette, and there's noodle there, and what else? Wow, lots of different bread. Great. Open doors, rush outside. We will swing, we will slide. We'll have fun side by side. We all are welcome here.
We're part of a community. Our strength is our diversity, a shelter from adversity. All are welcome here.
We will learn from each other. Special talents will uncover. There is a big world to discover. Yes.
All are welcome here. And this is the lion dance. And there's some kids playing a gong, a drum, and cymbals.
So much to learn, so much to do. And when the busy day is through, can't wait to come back and start anew. All are welcome here.
Head for home and get some rest, and greet tomorrow ready and fresh.
Our time together is the very best.
All are welcome here.
We all have a space here together. Yeah, this is a same-sex marriage with a kid. Yeah.
And
then,
over here you see a heterosexual couple.
That's right. And this is an interracial marriage too.
Yeah, and over here as well.
Yeah, and over here too, it says same-sex. And this is in the big school, what do you call it? Hot pot. No, what do you call it?
Potluck.
Potluck.
Okay.
So after we were reading the story, Gahong was sharing with me what's actually going on in her school life. And we thought we'd share some with you too.
Yeah. So I go to Jameson Elementary School. Students in my class are predominantly Asians. Majority are Chinese. Only a few white students. Kids usually mix and work together, but sometimes some will talk among themselves in their own language. Once, I was at a table group with kids who all spoke Mandarin, and I felt excluded as I did not speak Mandarin. Cynthia was telling me that the public schools in Montreal, Quebec, no other language is allowed other than French in the classrooms. I think this is a good idea as it makes everyone feel included.
Yeah, and also Gahong was sharing with me some other stories, and then that showed that our world seems to be really getting smaller.
Yeah. My mother is a teacher at a daycare, and one time she did a project called Around the World with her toddlers, and I got to learn a bit about it too. I learned about Russia, and I got very interested. I talked with my Russian friend in my class about what I learned about Russia, and she was very happy and told me more about her country, and we talked for a very long time. I also have an Iranian friend that lives in my neighborhood. She told me that she loves listening to Korean popular music, and she started picking up some Korean language and wanted to learn more. Since I am a native Korean speaker, I teach her Korean, and she is very good at math, so she sometimes helps me with advanced math homework. It's so cool, and we've become great friends.
Isn't that wonderful? And I remember when I was in high school in Taiwan, I also loved the American pop songs. It's very popular then. So it was like Beatles, Elvis Presley, and the anti-Vietnam War song. They were so popular among all my friends. We listened to the song by radio, and then sang together, and sometimes even perform. So, and then we pick up some basic English by doing that. So, Garong, like you and I, we have 60 years difference. But some of the things just don't change, it seems. And then Garong was also showing me how to write her names, and in Korean and in Chinese. So we seem to end up by going back to our roots again. So that's our story. Hope you like it. Bye.
you.
Bye.
Good morning. My name is Lorraine Stokes, and before I light the candles, I just want to share a little something about the sanctuary. I'm standing behind these beautiful flowers, including phlox, I believe it's called, and the smell is just amazing. So if you have a chance to get out into a garden today to enjoy the smell of the flowers, please do so. Now, we light a chalice candle at the start of our services every week, and I hope you've had a chance to light a candle at home to help create your own special sacred space. The candle lighting means many different things to each of us. For some, it's a reminder of our shared purpose together. For others, the act of lighting a candle is a small gesture to guide us into a more reflective place. We take time in our services to light individual candles as well. These are candles for gratitude, candles for grief, candles for celebration. As each candle is lit, and as you're watching this, please join us in saying we light this candle together. The first candle that we light this morning is a candle of remembrance for the hundreds of children in unmarked graves found in Canada's residential schools, for their families, and for the survivors and the communities of people affected by the residential schools. We light this candle together. Juliet Andrian, one of our fellow candle lighters, asks us to light a candle of remembrance for her father who passed away this week. We light this candle together. Deborah Sutherland asks that we light a candle for her granddaughter, Michaela, that she be surrounded by light and love. We light this candle together. Family and friends of Sebastian Ralphs request that a candle be lit in celebration of his 24th birthday. Happy birthday, Sebastian. We light this candle together. Elena Fumi asks that we light a candle for her daughter Fatima, that she might find her way. We light this candle together. We light a candle for the people across BC, including members of our congregation, that are affected by the forest fires in many different ways. We light this candle together. Bill Perry asks that we light a candle for the BC firefighters on the front lines. We light this candle together. Anne Bev asks us to light a candle in gratitude for her daughter, that she has never had to hide the fact that she is gay and that she is so happy with her partner. We light this candle together. We light this final candle this morning for our unspoken joys and sorrows, our celebrations and concerns, and as a reminder to treat each other with kindness and with compassion. We light this candle together. Thank you.
We take this time in our service to settle in, meditate, pray, and I'm going to introduce today's meditation time with a poem from James Baldwin. James Baldwin was a novelist, playwright, essayist, poet, and activist. He was open about his homosexuality and relationships with both men and women. Yet he believed that the focus on rigid categories was just a way of limiting freedom, and that human sexuality is more fluid and less binary than often expressed in the United States. May I recommend Baldwin's novel, Giovanni's Room, published in 1956 and well before the gay liberation movement, for its celebration of homoeroticism. Baldwin lived most of his life in France. For nothing is fixed.
For nothing is fixed forever, forever, forever. It is not fixed. The earth is always shifting, the light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock. Generations do not cease to be born, and we are responsible to them. Because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises, the light fails, lovers cling to each other, and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out.
We're gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna honor those before us. Honor those before us. Honor those before us. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna reach across our borders. Reach across our borders. Reach across our borders. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna work for change together. Work for change together. Work for change together. Never never turning back. We're gonna keep on singing loudly, keep on singing loudly, keep on singing loudly, never turning back, never turning back.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Chris Morrissey, and I want to thank you for inviting me to come to speak to you today during this summer Pride season. I'm the co-founder of Rainbow Refugee Society, along with Rob Hughes, a local lawyer. More about that in a few minutes. Somebody asked me recently what motivated me or motivates me to do what I do. And for me, I guess the important thing is that justice and the sense of justice has always been something that was of significance to me in my life. And a lot of it came from my family growing up. I have a photograph from the 1940s in England of myself and my mother sitting with German prisoners of war at a picnic in a park. And in the 1950s, when we were already in Canada, my parents brought into our home a Hungarian refugee family who had arrived in BC and had no place to stay. My early years, I remember I was involved with the great boycott for Cesar Chavez, and also the whole Nestle's boycott with the pushing of baby formula in developing countries to families who could not really afford it. And then Bridget and I, my partner, we went to Chile in 1981. And while we were there, from the community that we were a part of, we learned a lot about liberation theology. So in 1989, we returned to Canada, and we discovered that immigration for Bridget was a real problem. And because our relationship wasn't recognized, and she didn't qualify with the numbers of points required to come as a skilled worker. And so because we were very familiar with oppressive systems, having lived so many years in Chile, one of the things that we knew that was important was to gather a group of like-minded people in order to bring about change. And so that's what we did. So in 1992, I filed a suit in federal court, and we met many other couples who were in similar situations to us, where one was Canadian and one could not sponsor their partner for immigration. So we brought this group of like-minded people together, and we formed an organization called Legit, now known as Legit, Canadian Immigration for Same-Sex Partners. So in 1993 and 94, along came the internet and email and websites and all that wonderful technology stuff that we're so familiar with these days. And so we had a whole new way of finding information and of connecting globally. And Legit decided to put up a website so we could inform people of how they could, Canadians, how they could sponsor a partner. And also Rob Hughes had a website for his law company. at some point, we both were overwhelmed with the numbers of emails that we were receiving, connections from our website, asking how they could come to Canada to find a safe place to live. So one day, in the year 2000, Rob and I, standing on a sidewalk, decided that we wanted to see if we could find some way to respond to the many emails that we were receiving. And so we had, we organized a meeting in Rob's law office at the time on Robson Street, and we invited members of the community to come so that we could have a discussion with people in the community to see how to respond to these many emails. We were extremely surprised by the people who showed up. We had hoped to receive Canadians who were in a position to talk about sponsoring LGBTQI folks from overseas who were wanting to find a place where they could be safe leaving their countries of persecution. However, the majority of people that showed up were folks who were already here in Canada, had come here one way or another. They were students, they'd come to study English, they were here as visitors and had overstayed. And they were all looking for ways that they might be able to stay in Canada because they were afraid of going back to their own countries, because they knew what the laws were like in their countries. And so they really were not wanting to go back because of this fear. And so after the meeting, Rob and I had a conversation, and we decided that we needed to refocus what we had thought that we would be able to do. And so we decided that the first thing to do would be to hold some drop-ins for people who were here already in Canada, afraid to go home because of persecution, so that we could provide them with information about Canada's In Canada refugee system and give them information and support them to actually come to stay in Canada. So that's what we did. And between then and the beginning of the pandemic, we've held at least 500 drop-ins for people, and they've been hundreds of asylum seekers that have come from a whole lot of different countries, including many countries in the Middle East, initially many countries in South America, countries from Southeast Asia, also people from the Middle East who had arrived in Australia and who had been sent to Manus Island, where they were sitting in a refugee camp. And so that's kind of how we began. For example, some of the people, we had a student, a UBC student, who came and he was nearing the end of his student visa, and he knew that he was going to have to return home. And so he wanted to find out how he could stay, because the country that he would go back to had legislation which criminalized him as a gay man. There was a lesbian, for example, who came from South American country, and because it was a lot of people who were Catholics there, and they sent their daughter, who was identifying as a lesbian, or at least who was attracted to women at that point. So they sent their daughter to the priest in the church, both to see if he could scare her into changing her behavior, to shame her into changing her behavior, and to convince her that it was a sin, and therefore she needed to change her behavior. We've also had, there was a woman who emailed us from a country in the Middle East, a woman. And one of the things that's of concern is the fact that women in the Middle East are not free to travel, and they have to have a male guardian. And so communicating with this woman who was wanting to leave her country so that she would be able to live a life freely and openly was a real challenge for her. And so during the course of a year or so, I was in regular email communication with her, trying to be extremely safe in terms of not putting her at risk. And it took her approximately a year to actually figure out how she could leave her country and go to a place where she was able to get a plane ticket and get on a plane without necessarily having a male escort family member with her. She did, eventually she was able to leave, and she did get here, and she eventually made a successful refugee claim. So we had many people who were here in Canada who came looking for information and support to see how, in fact, they could stay in Canada because they recognized it was a safe place for them to be who they were, rather than having to go back to their home countries where homosexuality, gender identity, HIV positive status often were criminalized, and many people faced years in prison as a result of if they were found or caught. And for some of them, they had lived here in Canada for a number of years. And so the thought, and had been out and free to live openly. And so the thought of having to go back to their countries and to go back into the closet was something that they really did not want to have to do. Then in the year, let me see, in the year 2011, we had a phone call from the then Minister of Immigration, and he asked us if we would take on a project, a pilot project, to sponsor LGBTQI HIV positive people from overseas. Now, one of the challenges in that is that in order to be a refugee and in order to be sponsored, a person has to flee their own country. That's who a refugee is, someone who has fled their own country for a variety of reasons, one being a fear of persecution, and being a member of a particular social group is recognized as someone who qualifies as a refugee if in their country they don't have state protection and if they're facing persecution. So we decided that we would begin to do this, to assist people in sponsoring other people from different countries. And again, many emails that we received from people overseas, similar to how we had been receiving them in the early days. I recently got an email from a father, interestingly enough, whose son was, since he started preschool, had been bullied and beaten up and persecuted because he was girly and he was a sissy. And his father was really concerned for his safety, because recently in their neighborhood, prior to the email, a young man had actually been beaten up by a bunch of other young thugs, and had actually died as a result of the beating that he received. And so this father obviously was concerned about his own son's safety and life, and he contacted us to see if we would be able to sponsor him to come to Canada. This is just one example of many. Now, what we do is we form what we call circles of hope that involve 7 or 8 people who come together from the community and from different people from different parts of the communities that we belong to. And they begin to take a look at sponsoring someone, preparing themselves to be able to be a sponsoring group. And then, of course, they have to raise the funds in order to take on a sponsorship, because the commitment for sponsorship, for private sponsorship, is that the group supports someone for a whole year, for 12 months, financially, emotionally, and in every way, assisting them to hopefully integrate into Canadian society. So we have had many groups over the course of the year since 2011. 2011, it's 21. Yes. Yes. So we've been doing this now since 2011, and so we formed many groups. And along with some of the groups, there have also been churches that have learned about this project, which was a pilot project, and have also wanted to sponsor LGBTQI, HIV positive people who were being persecuted in their own countries. And your church, the Unitarians here on Oak and 49th, have been part of that process and have worked with Rainbow Refugee to sponsor a number of LGBTQ folks to come to Canada, and are currently supporting people who have gone through that whole process. There's some real challenges in this process. Well, first of all, I should say that this is no longer a pilot project. After the 3 years, we applied for the project to be extended, and we have applied several times to have the project extended. And more recently, a couple of years ago, well, before the pandemic started, maybe a year before the pandemic, we met with the government, and the government committed to providing funding for a certain number of people that we would sponsor to come to Canada. Now, there are a number of challenges in this program. It sounds good, right? That Canadians can get together and they can decide on sponsoring someone specifically because of their persecution, because of their sexual orientation, gender identity, and or HIV positive status. But one of the real challenges is that there's the only pathway for someone to become a refugee and to actually apply for resettlement to a third country is that they have to leave their home country, and they have to go to some other country, usually a neighboring country, and they have to live there and survive there throughout the whole process of, first of all, waiting to see if someone will sponsor them, and secondly, during the sponsoring and processing time. And this creates barriers for particular groups, well, for everybody really, but this particularly impacts women, because for women, it's much more difficult to leave their country, to travel to another country, to survive in another country, where in fact they very often are not able to get work. They're not able to find ways to support themselves. They don't have family, they don't have supports. So it becomes much more difficult for them. And many of the countries that people have to go to are, as I said, neighboring countries. And these host countries often have legislation not that different from their own country. So, for example, somebody who's in Uganda and facing persecution and imprisonment in Uganda will make their way to Kenya, neighboring country. But Kenya has its own legislation against LGBT folks. And so the host countries are not always very, very friendly for LGBT folks. And so those people have to survive through that time, the time of waiting. And we've been contacted by people who've been waiting for 7, 8, 9 years, waiting for resettlement and trying to find ways to survive. And so, as well as the challenge of the alternate path, and there not being an alternate path, and the fact that host countries are often hostile. For example, I've had lots of emails from folks from Iran who have ended up in Malaysia. And Malaysia criminalizes homosexuality as well. And so they're not safe in that country either. And so in addition to the waiting time that they have in order to see if they can get sponsored, once they have been identified by a group and people have contacted them and have offered sponsorship, the Canadian government sponsoring time is long. So without thinking about the pandemic, the sponsoring time has been approximately 2 years and sometimes a lot longer. And so in the meantime, people have to learn to survive in that host country, and oftentimes have to resort to criminal activity and sell themselves on the streets in order to get enough food to eat. Last year, as an example, we submitted approximately 70 applications to sponsor people from a whole variety of different countries. And the year before that, we submitted 50 applications. And these applications are submitted from all across the country, not just here from the Lower Mainland, because in the beginning, Rainbow Refugee here in Vancouver was the first and the only organization supporting LGBTQI refugees overseas. But over time, other groups have come on board and have also begun to participate in this so-called pilot project, which is no longer a pilot. And so now there are, in fact, groups, organizations from coast to coast. I can't say the third to coast, but from coast to coast, from Nova Scotia to Nanaimo and many points in between. So the organization, we now have a coalition of groups that actually are working on doing this sponsorship, and who also are in a position to negotiate with the federal government to improve conditions for people, and with other organizations like the Canadian Council for Refugees. We work to overcome some of the challenges and the barriers that people experience. So during this time, since 2011, and given the fact of the numbers of people that we've sponsored, I can say that there have been, at least in the Lower Mainland alone, there have been at least 500 people involved in each sponsorship. And that's to say that doesn't include the numbers of people who have been involved in terms of being donors and donating money to each of the circles, so that they're able to actually reach the amount of money needed before they can submit an application. One of the things that is very heartening, and I'm very encouraged by, is the fact that more and more people are coming forward to volunteer their time. And it is a big commitment, because if you think about it, people have to, first of all, come together, form a group. They then have to raise, depending on anywhere from $25,000 to $45,000 or $50,000 if they're sponsoring a family. And so more and more people in the Lower Mainland are coming together and forming these circles of hope and continuing to volunteer. So for me, it's a real sign that we as Canadians are becoming much more globally aware and globally conscious, and also aware of the privilege that we have living in Canada and that many other people don't have. And so in your church, and several of the people in your church have been involved in volunteering to do this and to sponsor a number of LGBT folks. So I want to thank you both for giving me this opportunity, but primarily for being there to support people who really need to come to a safe place of safety. One of the things that we emphasize and we focus on is that we, the sponsors and our organizations, we are not saving people. People are saving themselves, because they're the ones who live through the horror that they have to live through, the challenges of waiting, and the uncertainty of the future. And so the people that we sponsor are people who are extremely courageous, who have found ways to survive. They are, in fact, survivors. And so what we do as volunteers and as members of supporting circles and members of our organization is we walk in solidarity with them in a similar way to which over the many years Canadians have been in solidarity with people from many other parts of the world who have needed to come to a safe place. So thanks for giving me this opportunity. And this is a very unusual experience for me. For the last year and a half, I've done many Zoom meetings, but this is the first time ever that I've actually had to sit and look at myself and record myself. So I hope that this experience is a positive one for you, and that I've been able to share with you some insights and some information, and encourage you to continue supporting your refugee group in your church, and continuing to reach out to provide support to members of the LGBTQI community to actually come to find support to come to a safe place, which is Canada. Thank you.
We have cleared off the table, the leftovers saved, washed the dishes and put them away. I have told you a story and tucked you in tight at the end of your knockabout day. As the moon sets its sails to carry you to sleep over the midnight sea, I will sing you a song no one sang to me. May it keep you good company. You can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know I will love you still. You can live by yourself, you can gather friends around, You can choose one special one, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done. There are kids who grow up strong and bold. There are others quiet and kind. Some race on ahead, some follow behind, some go in their own way and time. Some women love women, some men love men, some raise children, some never do. You can dream all the day, never reaching the end of everything possible for you. Don't be rattled by names, by taunts, by games, but seek out spirits true. If you give your friends the best part of yourself, they will give the same back to you. You can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know I will love you still. You can live by yourself, you can gather friends around, you can choose one special one, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done. The love you leave behind when you're done.
Please join me in saying our affirmation of gratitude. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for all those who share their gifts, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may be held in the generosity of others. Now, I was not fortunate enough to be a part of this congregation when we were still able to meet in person in the sanctuary, but I have heard many wonderful stories, one of which I heard from Laureen about the offering portion of our service. She told me about the baskets that were passed up and down the rows as music was played, and the kind words of the minister spoken with appreciation and gratitude. We may not have that today, but we do have a symbol of the gifts that we share. And we show it here as a reminder of the kindness and generosity in our hearts. Any and all offerings are received with deep thanks and will be dedicated to the growth and development of our congregation and the Unitarian movement as a whole.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrows we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fear, ways. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build a common good and make our own days glad.
Good morning. My name is Galen Elfert. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees here at the Unitarian Church. I'm speaking to you this morning from very smoky Nelson, BC, on the traditional ancestral lands of the Ktunaxa, Syilx, and Sinixt peoples. The Board oversees and guides the Church forward, furthering its mission and vision in many ways. That vision is this: because we envision a more compassionate world, we seek to deepen our spiritual and religious lives, grow and enrich our congregation, and advocate for love and justice. As Unitarians, we are dedicated to spiritual growth, social justice, and reverence for nature and all of life. We embody these values through worship, ethical action, artistic expression, and religious education for all ages that aims to connect hearts, heads, and hands. Our congregation welcomes all ages, orientations, abilities, and identities in our joyous search for meaning. I have one announcement this morning. Young Unitarian Universalists in Canada, aged 14 to 35, are invited to attend a forum on Saturday, August 7th, to discuss the eighth principle and the process for adopting it in Canada. In addition to the forum specifically for youth and young adults, the CUC is hosting 2 more Leaders' Roundtables this summer to discuss the proposed eighth principle. Any Canadian Unitarian is welcome to attend these roundtable discussions. The next one is July 31st, and another will be held on August 28th, both in the morning Pacific time. To find out more about either of these events, please visit cuc.ca and click on Events. These monthly roundtables will continue through October, and we encourage any UCV member with passion, questions, or thoughts around the principles to attend at least one of these discussions. You don't have to be a delegate to attend these forums. The CUC will be looking into how our principles are evaluated, changed, or added to in the future. We expect this to be a topic at our next May's National AGM. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm chair of our Genders and Sexualities Alliance, and I want to give you an update about what we've been up to. The UUA and the CUC now suggest that congregations renew their status as a welcoming congregation to LGBTQ plus people every year. So we've embarked on that and have completed 4 of the 5 tasks. The first one is to go through the original Welcoming Congregation program, and I'm proud to say that our congregation was the second one in Canada to certify back in 1995. Now, I've been around here for 30 years, but that was before my time. The second one is to observe at least 6 of the welcoming days of observance, and with Reverend Laura's help, we've certainly done more than that during the year. Another one is to do a worship service. We've done several that have BGLTQ themes, but today's, of course, meets that. And to support an organization, and in our case, the one that we most support has been Rainbow Refugee, both giving them financial donations through our Opportunities Fund and also co-sponsoring people from around the world as refugees. The final one we hope to complete in the fall. It's offering a religious education program on some related theme, and the kicker here, especially during COVID, is 10% of the congregation have to attend. So in our case, that's 35 members. So it's not just 35 people, but 35 members. So we hope to do that over the coming year. And I want to also invite you next week after the service. I'll be here as part of the decentralized Pride Parade. Because of COVID, we can't do the ginormous Vancouver Pride Parade, so they're having little mini Pride Parades all over the place. So come and join me, and we'll have a little parade around our beautiful gardens and smell the flowers. So our closing words. Because of those who came before, we are. In spite of their failings, we believe. Because of and in spite of the horizons of their vision, we too dream. Let us go remembering to praise, to live in the moment, to love mightily, and to bow to the mystery. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.